Well, good morning. Greg Surratt here with a little Wednesday morning encouragement, worry free Wednesday. And this one's going to be a little bit different because we had an election last night. Now, normally I would record this a day or two early and, it would automatically play. But I thought with the election coming, I need to watch that, get up early, and comment on it and see if we can get some encouragement out of it. So I stayed up last night until 2 o'clock a.m. to see what was the outcome. I don't know if anybody else did that. And then I got up earlier this morning to see what are people saying on the television stations. Now I watched four different shows because I wanted four different perspectives. I watched Fox News, uh, CNN, NBC, and MSNBC to get four different perspectives. And guess what? On all four programs, Donald Trump won. So we have a new president. Now, I want to comment on that in just a minute, but I want to review just for a second some of the things that we've been talking about at Seacoast over the last few weeks. As we were leading up to the election, and I'll condense it into about four things that I think cover what basically the information that we wanted to get to our church. But we asked you to pray for wisdom before voting or discussing politics. Pray for guidance to help maintain a clear perspective and seek peace regardless of the outcome. So we told you, pray for wisdom, stay informed, understand the policies, values. We said, don't just vote how you always would vote, but you need to look at the values. You need to look at the platform of the candidates, and so stay informed. And then the third thing, respect others' views. People, even within the same faith, may differ politically, and engaging with respect and empathy can build bridges rather than divisions. We didn't want to let this election cause divisions among friendships, family members, and churches, and we got to fight hard on that. And then the fourth thing was remember that your ultimate hope is not in elections. They're important, but the Christian perspective encourages placing hope in something bigger than political outcomes. It's about balancing convictions with kindness, wisdom, and peace. We talked about the fact that our identity isn't in our party, it is in Jesus. Now, let's talk about the election. And I am tempted to political punditry here. I'm just going to make an admission. I love that stuff. I do. I don't like the division that comes, but I love our country. I love how the politics work when you understand them. I'm fascinated just watching the whole thing. And I'm tempted to talk about, why did Donald Trump win and why did Kamala Harris not do well in certain areas? And you know what? I'll have those conversations with a small group of friends. And it's better when my friends don't all agree with me. It's more fun that way. And I probably will, but that's not the hat that I'm wearing right now. In fact, I'm going to change hats just to illustrate that. But the hat that I'm wearing right now is a pastor hat. Okay. And that's different than a pundit hat. And those of you who live in the Charleston area know that, South Carolina, very red, but Charleston is purple. And Mount Pleasant is also. And, there are people that live next to you, probably in your family, that you will have Thanksgiving dinner with, and that'll be fun. That didn't vote the way that you did. And there's probably people in your church also. And so I want to speak with that in mind. And I'm also a pastor to pastors. And, we do the retreat at Church Creek, help start ARC, all of those things. And there are hundreds of pastors that receive this video every week. And I'm not saying I'm your personal pastor, but in a sense, because of my stage in life and what I do, I am. I'm a pastor to pastors, and they all don't vote the same way, regardless of what you may have read on an Instagram post from somebody or Facebook or X or whatever. There are pastors that see the world differently, and 48% of our country, their candidate didn't win last night, and so how do we handle that? And so I'm going to give you something that just might be a stretch. I'm going to say that up front, But what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? Now, that's not the stretch, but what if Jesus' candidate lost? We have no record of Jesus ever voting on anything. He doesn't talk a lot about politics in the New Testament. But let's assume that he lived today in the USA and there was an election. He picked a candidate and his candidate lost. So, how would he handle it? Well, if we consider Jesus' character and teachings, his response would very likely be rooted in grace and peace and trust in God's bigger plan, regardless of political outcomes. And that's what we've been teaching for the last few weeks. Jesus often focused on the heart and loving others, even those with opposing views. Read the Sermon on the Mount. He taught that the kingdom of God isn't tied to earthly politics, but that it transcends it. So if his candidate lost, if he had a candidate, he'd likely remind people to continue loving their neighbors, serving those in need, and trusting in God's sovereignty. And he'd probably also encourage people not to despair or become divisive, but to continue living out their values through compassion and humility and peacemaking. Now, let me talk about that just for a minute, because I think there's a difference between disagreeing and being divisive. Whether that's, there's one thing I love about our country is everybody doesn't have to agree. And we're built on a system where we have adversarial, loyal adversaries and we can argue points of view and political things. We do that in our families. But here's what I think. I think one of the reasons that our country is so polarized right now is we've lost the art of disagreeing. Um, there is a difference between disagreeing and being divisive. Disagreeing and being divisive, even though they sometimes overlap in intense conversations, there are differences. Disagreeing, it's part of the natural, healthy part of relationships in society. People have different perspectives, experiences, and beliefs. And so disagreements are going to happen. Just wait till Thanksgiving, and that'll bear that out. Disagreeing can be done respectfully, where both sides listen, try to understand each other, even if they don't come to an agreement. It focuses on the issue, not attacking the person. You've heard me say time after time, a good answer, yeah, when you don't agree is, you know what, you might be right. And you don't do that condescendingly. In fact, the more you say it and the more mature you get, you say it with humility. You might be right. I don't agree with you, but you might be right. Well, being divisive goes beyond simple disagreements. It often involves creating unnecessary conflict or hostility, polarizing people, prioritizing winning over understanding. Divisiveness tends to stir up anger and resentment and separation. It focuses on undermining or discrediting others rather than addressing the issue itself. And it's real easy to get into that. I've seen that happen in churches, not just about an American political system, but issues that happen in churches. I've seen it in families. It gets personal. See, the key difference lies in the intent and the approach. Disagreeing seeks understanding, while divisiveness seeks to break apart and conquer. And with Jesus, his focus was always on the bigger picture, how we treat others, even in challenging times. So this morning, some of you are happy, and that's okay. That's good. Some of you are kind of stunned a little bit. You weren't expecting this. How did the polls go so wrong? How did all of this come to be? And that's a punditry thing. I'm not going to talk about that. I've got some opinions on it, but you're grappling with how do I respond and how do I feel about that? Well, the first thing that you need to do, really bigger than anything else, if you don't remember anything in what I talk about this morning, is know that God is in charge and God is in control. God is sovereign. And I want to invite you to something that I think is going to be hugely helpful. Tonight at Seacoast Church, Mount Pleasant, at 6:30 p.m., we're going to have a worship time. And Brandon Lake and some of his team are going to lead us in worship at 6:30. If you can be there, come. It's going to be a great time as we put things in proper perspective, regardless of whether your candidate won or your candidate didn't win. If you can't be here, you can go to live.seacoast.org. And because of the technology, which I love, we'll be able to worship together anywhere in the world. All right. So hopefully that's helpful. I hope it was worth me getting up early and doing this early after staying up last night. But why don't you join me today? Let's crush worry free Wednesday together. Whether your candidate won or your candidate lost, God didn't lose. God is in control, and it's going to be okay. So let's crush Worry Free Wednesday. Are you in? If you enjoy these encouraging videos, why don't you subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, or share it with a friend. And until next time, worry less, live more, and let's not just have a good day. Let's make this a great